Certainly last but not least, Jon Fletcher. So if you can come on down and tell your story for leadership and culture and what we got out of your cluster. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Jon Fletcher and I'm from Leading Teams, and essentially Leading Teams, before I start, Damon Johns is from IT Services with the Dept of Justice, and he was one of our cluster members who will have a bit of a chat to Damon in a moment. Leading Teams, for those who don't know, we're a company, Australia-wide company that specialises in high-performance team alignment and developing leaders. As the other three clusters, we had 3 sessions in March, April and May, and we had 9 attendees. It was a southern-based cluster, and we had attendees from 4 different organisations, spread across government, corporate and not-for-profit, which was a nice spread and allowed for good conversation at the sessions. As with all Leading Teams programs, we've focused around our high-performance model, and our high-performance model is essentially based around high-performing teams having high-performance leaders, and we use that across all programs that we work with. There was strong emphasis on developing personal leadership skills throughout our cluster. So whilst our program was all about building high-performance teams, we believe for a team to be successful, it's all about the strength of the leadership within the organisation. Leading Teams, we very much about an action learning program, and listening to Doug and Jeff just a moment ago, their clusters are very similar. At the end of every session that we conducted, our attendees went out and did some learning activities and some action learning things, and that we were then brought back and discussed and reviewed every time that we reconvened. Session 1, I don't have any slides, but I'll give you a bit of an outline of what our session 1 was all about. We focused on what a high-performing team looked like. And if you have a look on the screen up there, the areas that we talk about, every team has a common purpose. Each every team has what we call a mechanics focus. We don't really deal in that area very much, just this area of expertise that is unique to each individual organisation. The area that Leading Teams and our clusters we focused on was the area called dynamics. As you can see up there, dynamics. Then we break that up into 3 areas: strong professional relationships, agreed behavioural framework, and what we call genuine conversations. And our model, we believe that dynamics then are what drive the mechanics of any program. And from that, then we can look at how we recruit, retain, induct and exit any staff members. So that's session 1 was all around about identifying each of our attendees, what their team looked like. They went through the high performance model. We identified what the life cycle of a team looks like, so where we get started in the process of the sustaining of a team. We did a workplace relationship audit in line with what the strong professional relationships are all about, and then we identified productive and non-productive behaviours that each of the attendees are experiencing in the workplace at the time. The leadership action that was taken at the end of that session was that we asked the attendees to go out and, in line with the productive and non-productive behaviours they saw, that we asked them to go and reward any productive behaviour, challenge any non-productive behaviour, and role model the behaviour of what they believe the good leader should look like. Additionally, any non-productive behaviour, they were asked to start thinking about, well, how could they address that in terms of having a genuine conversation. Session 2, now that's where we started to really look at individual leadership and what individual leadership looks like for each of the attendees. We talked a bit about the truth about them currently as a leader, so what do they look like, and then what their current leadership style was. So, and we had a good chat about that amongst all the different attendees as to what they believed was, what they saw as a good leadership style and what they currently viewed themselves as a leader. We also talked about mentoring and having a critical friend and a trusted advisor, as to whether they had one of those. At the end of that session, session 2, the little bit of leadership action was to go out and speak to their work colleagues and ask them to find out, well, how were they viewed in the workplace? What did their colleagues see them like? what were their current strengths, and just really essentially they had to go out and get 5 words from the people that they worked with to describe who they are and how they currently led their program. Session 3, again, more individual leadership development, and one of the things we asked them to do in that session was to draw themselves as a leader. So we got a piece of paper and a pen and asked them to sit back and draw themselves as a leader to see how they viewed themselves. So a little bit of an unusual way, but a good way to see, well, how did they view themselves? And again, we reviewed that and talked about that in the group. And then we did we then did some personal preferred behaviour profiling using the DISC profiling system, and that was to really identify what style of leader and what were their preferred behaviours that they used within their team, whether they were a dominant leader, a little bit more relaxed, influential leader, or a bit more conscientious, and that was leading into then developing their own personal trademark. So in that session, we asked them then to use the words that they collected after session 2 to start then to build their own, what we call their own trademark. How do they want to be viewed as a leader? Where are they now? What's the truth about them currently, and where they'd like to be in an ideal world, and what is the gaps? What was the gaps that they identified that they had to work on? And the personal trademark was their final little bit of leadership action that we asked them to take out and develop over the next few months. And part of the cluster is that I'll go and we'll link up again in the next month or so and continue to work on developing the personal trademark until it's a working document for them. So that was essentially how we worked, and I'll ask Damon a couple of questions now. Just to open up, Damon, working with the IT services, how many people work with you, and what are their roles that they do on a daily basis?
Yeah, sure. So is this on? Yep.
I think so, mate.
Yep. So at the moment we've got a total of 4 team members. I work as the senior IT desktop support officer within that team. There are 2 service desk analysts and 1 team member in between those 2 people and myself, who leads more of a mentoring role for the 2 service desk analysts. So the high performance cluster focused on developing personal leadership. What was sort of the challenges as a leader for you when you moved in and joined the cluster? Sorry, can you just ask that again?
Oh, sorry, what were some of the challenges that you identified in your...
Yeah, sure. So when I first started the workshop, it was interesting to note that during the first session that I was able to identify some areas within the team that probably needed some more work that I didn't realise before. Some of those were around why the team was actually there and what they were actually there to do. It might sound very simplistic for a 4-member team not to know what they're there to do, but some of the guys who hadn't been with us for so long needed that reaffirmed. It was also good to take away some things in the area of being able to have conversations with people. The team didn't necessarily talk between themselves as much as they probably should, and I was able to take that away and use that in the workplace.
So what's some of the key tools that you've been able to use that you can take away from the cluster?
Yeah, so I just touched on a couple of those. Having those genuine conversations with my team members, raising issues that I saw, addressing non-productive behaviours, and also rewarding and giving positive feedback on those good productive behaviours that I was seeing in the team.
So where are you heading to next? What's the thoughts around your leadership and how you're going to build?
Yeah, so I'm going to continue to work with the framework that Jon's provided within the workshop, not only developing my personal trademark, but also working more with identifying the different personalities within the team and getting the team members to understand each other's personalities with regards to what Jon referred to before with the DISC profiling. We're going to get, hopefully, Jon back out. We've got a new team member starting with us in a few weeks, and we see that as a really good opportunity to get Jon back out. go through some of the dynamics, the cultural behaviours within the team, get that new team member on board, have them understand what we're about, and hopefully that makes us a better team in the long run.
Okay, thanks, Damon.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was just a quick summary of how the cluster worked. As with Jeff and Doug, we'll be looking to conduct some further clusters late July, August and September. We were only southern based for our first set, but we'll be looking to also run a northern cluster across the same period of time. If you have any questions regarding the Leading Teams program or anything around leadership and cultural development, I'll be around for the rest of the morning and certainly around just tomorrow as well. So please feel free to come up and have a chat, and I look forward to meeting you. And looking forward to running another cluster later on in the year. Thanks very much, everyone.